On a sunny Sunday, I drove my wife's car to purchase a couple of new lawn chairs. To accomplish this, I decided to listen to the program called This American Life on the NPR channel and got absorbed in the captivating stories they were presenting. While driving, I heard about a book on the radio that grabbed my attention, and I had to jot down its title. With one hand on the steering wheel, I searched in the center console with the other hand, feeling around for the handle. Among various items that appeared from the depths beneath the CD cases, like a crumpled honey wrapper, a folded Starbucks drink package, a quarter, and even a folding comb, I found something quite unexpected: a package of contraceptives. This surprise startled me, causing me to momentarily loosen my grip on the steering wheel, nearly veering off the road. Moments like these stay etched in memory, replaying in slow motion in each frame. A red Toyota passed me on the left, driven by a red-haired girl with an earring. Returning my focus to the road, I noticed the speedometer showed 34 miles per hour. Dust particles had settled on the dashboard, a reminder of the passage of time. Anticipating a green traffic light, I felt a sense of assurance. Beneath the windshield, crushed beetles offered evidence of previous journeys. However, when I retrieved the CD case, its rough edges unexpectedly scratched my wrist, catching me off guard. These unusual sensations disrupted my train of thought, making it difficult to think clearly. Amidst this confusion, a question emerged: had I ever asked myself, is this mine? Had I ever contemplated infidelity? Thoughts, unlike images, tend to be messy and bewildering. Perhaps I worried about guilt stemming from inadvertently revealing a potentially dark secret. Or maybe fear overwhelmed me. It's possible I harbored doubts about having done something wrong. I meticulously combed through every corner of the car, starting with the glove compartment and ending in the trunk. I even checked all the doors and scrutinized the seats. Finally, my efforts paid off when I found a small package hidden beneath the passenger seat, cleverly concealed in a plastic bag from a supermarket. Gently unwrapping it, I discovered a compact spiral-bound notebook. My heart raced as I opened it and began examining its contents. The first 2 pages were blank, piquing my curiosity. As I turned to subsequent pages, I encountered a series of cryptic lists. One of the entries was crossed out, capturing my attention. Under different circumstances, I might not have paid these lists any mind or pondered their significance. However, a familiar pattern started to emerge: the schedule of my work-related trips. The crossed-out date signaled the day I fell ill and had to unexpectedly stay home. The contraceptive hinted at a message directing my thoughts toward the hotels I frequented during my trips: Holiday Inn, Quality Inn. As I pieced together the clues, everything pointed to a planned meeting at the Travel Lodge or Holiday Inn the following day at precisely 1:30 p.m. This revelation left me with a mix of shock and disbelief. I desperately hoped that my assumptions were incorrect, that there was some other explanation. Yet the unmistakable presence of the contraceptive seemed to confirm the worst-case scenario. I had to confront a harsh reality: it turned out my wife had been having an ongoing affair for 4 months. This shattered any hope that it was an isolated incident. The evidence indicated she had indeed cheated on me, and with serious intentions. A lingering suspicion grew that she maintained a secretive and elusive list. This revelation hit me like a ton of bricks. Deep down, I sensed I was on the brink of losing her, and conflicting emotions raged within me. On one hand, I couldn't deny the resentment and anger that had built up, deeming her undeserving of my attention. On the other hand, love still resided in my heart, and letting go was incredibly difficult. The daunting task of confronting her lay ahead, and the thought of facing this painful truth filled me with fear. Questions swirled in my mind: how could I move on? In that moment, I shook my head, closed my eyes, and realized I was utterly lost. Doubts consumed me. Was she involved in something illegal? Did she have a hidden business on the side? Why the need for such secrecy? What if her affections had shifted to another person, even another woman? Uncertainty and confusion overwhelmed me, ensnaring me in a tangle of emotions. Lacking sufficient information about the situation, I felt entirely unsure how to approach her and initiate a conversation. Thoughts of what she might say raced through my mind. Would she express remorse with words like, "I'm sorry, my love. I never wanted you to find out. Please find it in your heart to forgive me. I must leave you because I've made a grave mistake"? Or would there be accusations and blackmail in her explanations, claiming she was compelled into an affair with an unknown person? Perhaps she'd shift the blame onto me, asserting that my absence and suspicions of infidelity had driven her to seek revenge. The potential scenarios seemed endless, and I couldn't predict what she might actually say. In the midst of this crisis, a startling discovery was revealed to me. She found out about my infertility and, in search of pregnancy, slept with my own brother. Just this thought sent goosebumps down my spine, emphasizing the depth of secrets and deception that were embedded in our relationship. Am I infertile? Why not reveal everything? I have supernatural powers as a vampire. I work undercover as a secret agent, and the nature of my mission is strictly classified. But dear, I want you to understand that I am doing this only for the sake of my country. I carefully returned the contraceptive and the notebook to its place. When you are overcome by deep sadness, the lower part of your face seems to be attracted to the earth, as if gravity holds it more strongly. I was at a loss for what to do or think. I had read enough about infidelity to understand that a woman can have an affair because of her own misfortune, and this suggested that perhaps I was to some extent to blame for this situation. My sense of self remained intact. It wasn't the end of my life. I experienced mixed emotions: resentment, anger, sadness, confusion. And in those dark hours, I wondered if I had made the wrong choice in life, if I was inherently flawed, if I needed to turn into someone else. That night, I put on the mask of a familiar person. When Sherry tried to start a conversation about a book she was reading, I pretended to be focused on work, saying that I had a difficult week ahead and I couldn't get rid of anxiety. "I'm sorry, my love. I feel a bit withdrawn." She retired to the bedroom to immerse herself in reading. Meanwhile, I was cleaning the dishes and doing household chores, even staying there until she fell asleep. The next morning, I hurriedly got dressed, left the house, and drove without leaving the car. I made the morning call. By 10 in the morning, I drove up to the old Holiday Inn. Unlike modern establishments, this hotel allows guests to park their cars next to the rooms, bypassing the entrance to the hotel through the lobby. In moments of despair, you have to act outside the box. I must admit that I don't know how to cheat. Instinct compels me to tell the whole truth, and this tendency, as a rule, benefits me in my work. Sharing information creates a sense of connection, allowing others to genuinely get attached to me, or maybe they just pretend to be friendly in order to gain additional knowledge. Ideally, I hope that everything will happen according to the first scenario. However, I have long since given up the idea that business contacts can be considered real friends. "Hello," I greeted the receptionist. "I think my wife has to meet someone here at 1:30. His reaction was subtle. "I suspect that she may be having an affair, and I would like to find out the identity of her companion." A skeptical expression appeared on his face. "I just want to see the surveillance footage." His doubt was obvious. "I'm afraid I can't grant you access, sir. With all due respect to you, there are doubts about your intentions. This hotel is responsible for the safety and privacy of its guests, not for your personal investigations. There is a possibility that you may pose a threat to this woman. I apologize for assuming that she is your wife without getting confirmation. As my first boss said when I entered uncharted territory, additional time should be allocated since rarely everything happens as expected. If my life was a detective novel, I could slip a $20 bill to the desk clerk unnoticed to gain access, but I am not one of those who resort to such tactics. On the contrary, as an experienced negotiator and manager, I'm able to find mutually beneficial solutions. The receptionist and I struck up a conversation, and soon he realized that it would be beneficial for the hotel if I watched the security monitors in his presence, which would ensure the transparency of my actions. Realizing that if I leave, I will be able to monitor the territory outside the hotel, and he will be powerless to prevent any unpredictable actions. Such a scenario could lead to legal consequences for the hotel. So it became obvious that in order to reduce the risk, it was necessary to keep me on the hotel grounds. I find great satisfaction in reaching agreements that satisfy both sides. As a gesture of goodwill, I treated us to lunch at Subway, choosing for myself a classic sub with tuna and for him chicken with bacon and ranch. After parking the car on the other side of the street, I went back to the hotel, and we watched the local news together at noon. During our communication, I openly shared information with him, discussing details related to the notebook and contraceptives. During our conversation, he talked about his personal life, shared stories about his family, including his nephew's imprisonment and his father's health problems. While enjoying the sandwiches, we started a conversation about fat, calories, and various eating methods, during which he mentioned his attempt to follow the Atkins diet. We agreed that the most difficult aspect of any diet is maintaining the achieved weight. It was as if we quickly became friends, knowing that our paths would most likely never cross again. Exactly at 1:25, she arrived. After parking the car at the back entrance, the farthest from the street, she remained sitting inside, engrossed in a telephone conversation. I could clearly see her face through the monitor. After finishing the conversation, she looked at her reflection in the rearview mirror, absently twirling a strand of hair in her hands. Suddenly, at exactly 1:30, an elegant blue BMW stopped next to her on the driver's side. A tall gentleman with a shock of brown hair got out of the car. He walked easily to the hotel entrance, handed over the room key, and looked back in the direction of my wife. In response, Sherry opened the car door, took one last look at her reflection, and confidently walked toward the man waiting for her. As she passed him, he gently wrapped his arm around her waist, pulling her to him. The hotel door closed behind them, sealing their private moment. The idea of an affair is easy to understand. We all used to be fond of it, but with effort and time, you can recover from such an affair. By acknowledging your pain and recognizing the underlying causes, you can choose to return. The most destructive outcome would be a connection with my worst enemy, a betrayal so cruel that it would make me feel as insignificant as the dirt on someone's shoe. It becomes almost impossible to escape doubt about the honesty of your own views or the presence of a fatal flaw in decision-making, leaving you attracted to false personalities. Perhaps you were deceived by Delilah herself, sweetly communicating with you while plotting your demise. This situation neither aligns with the best nor the worst options. It resides in the murky middle where complexity deepens. It encompasses two betrayals, one by your wife and another by someone else. If the other party is merely a golf buddy or someone of little significance, say the husband of one of your wife's friends, their betrayal carries limited weight. They are just another disrespectful person. However, if this person turns out to be your father or brother, a close family member, their betrayal might hurt even more than if it were your wife. After all, a wife isn't related by blood, and though you might feel so angry that you could end up physically fighting with your brother, you might ultimately prioritize your family ties over your marriage. She started an affair with your best friend Tom, betraying not only your friendship but also your marriage. Tom had been your best man at your wedding, just as you had been for his younger brother at his own wedding. You'd known Tom for 20 years, since you were 7 years old. He understood how important Sherry was to you and how committed you were to your marriage and trust. This betrayal deeply hurt you and weakened your once strong relationship. However, the understanding between you and the receptionist was clear. You shook hands, confirming that your friendship wouldn't be overshadowed by minor misunderstandings and that drink and basketball wouldn't create a divide. You crossed the street and headed for the golf course, where you got into your car and started hitting golf balls. With each swing, your ordinary clubs felt like perfectly balanced extensions of your body, and the wooden pieces became sharp and precise. Hitting the 4-iron shot was particularly satisfying as the balls soared into the air. These fleeting moments of clarity are what make golf both challenging and exhilarating. Feeling a surge of confidence, you decided to call Tom at home, greeted his wife Peg, and invited them to join you for dinner. You set up a meeting at Ciro's for 7. After making the call, you felt like a winner, just like you had dominated with the 4-iron. You called home and left a message for Sherry, letting her know you'd be early and arranging to meet at Ciro's at 7. You also left the same message on her mobile phone to make sure she got it. When you arrived home at 6, you noticed Sherry was already in the shower. Her gym bag was open on the floor, tempting you to explore its contents. You couldn't resist your curiosity, hoping to find something noteworthy. Unfortunately, you found nothing of interest. You called out to Sherry, expressing your intention to take a shower as well, realizing this might be your last chance with her before things got worse. Uncertainty hung over your future, and you were determined to convey your love for her. Sherry, breathing heavily as if she had just finished a vigorous run, snuggled up to you. Her satisfaction was clear in her voice as she praised the experience, and you both agreed to make such moments a regular occurrence. Her passion and genuine interest in you reassured your doubts, and you felt a deep connection in that moment. As you contemplated your next moves, you decided to meet Tom and Peg as planned. At the restaurant, everything appeared normal, and the bond of friendship remained strong among the four of you. But the weight of the impending conversation hung in the air. As you broached the topic, Sherry sensed your anxiety and offered her support by placing her hand on yours. You asked what they would do if they found out their best friend had betrayed them, or if their spouse was having an affair with their best friend. The room fell silent, and tension grew. Tom, Peg, and Sherry struggled to find words as they grappled with the seriousness of your questions. Tom's silence spoke volumes, revealing the depth of his mistake. Peg understood the truth and reacted swiftly, delivering a powerful blow to Tom's face. The moment seemed to stretch out as you savored it, reminiscing about past memories and reflecting on the current situation. You couldn't help but notice that Tom's usual witty responses were absent, replaced by the stark reality of his actions. Tom's hesitation and Peg's reaction underscored the seriousness of the situation. You turned to Sherry and posed the question of how you should respond to her unfaithfulness, leaving the decision between a violent confrontation or a peaceful divorce hanging in the air. The room remained silent, emphasizing the weight of your words. Tom realized the gravity of his actions, and Peg understood it perfectly. Tom began to explain, but before he could finish his sentence, Peg intervened with a powerful blow to his face. Time seemed to stretch again, allowing you to savor the moment and contemplate the significance of this turning point. Memories flooded your mind, reminding you of the innocent conversations you had with Tom in the past. I imagined us playing ball and fighting the cool wind behind a sturdy oak tree. In an instant, a lot of conversations overwhelmed me, disputes about the greatest runner, about the technique of unbuttoning a bra, the eternal question of who is better to be a Formula One racer or a movie star. There were curses in the air. "Oh, you bad speaker." The sound of Peg's hand striking him again startled him. In the midst of this horror, I was still holding Sherry's hand. Her grip had frozen suddenly. Peg jumped out from behind the table, grabbed her purse, quickly turned on her heel, and hurriedly left. Surprisingly, I remained calm. "Could you pay the bill?" I asked Tom calmly. "You can take the leftovers," I said to Tom, getting up and turning to face my wife. "Come on," I said, and Sherry gracefully slipped out from behind the table, following me to the car. As we walked, the first words that escaped Sherry's lips were full of remorse. I'm really sorry," I answered coldly, "very nice." "Are you sorry you got caught? Are you sorry that you hurt me?" My anger began to build. "Sorry you ruined our marriage? I'm sorry I seduced one of your best friends. I'm sorry that I ruined your old friendship." "For what? What exactly are you sorry for?" I demanded, feeling the full weight of my disappointment. Sherry's tears began to flow, not in streams, but in real drops running down her cheeks. I kept driving, trying to stay calm. When she plucked up the courage to speak, I raised my hand, signaling her to stop. She instinctively touched her forehead and closed her eyes, choking on sobs. I stopped the car. "You can come out," I said firmly. Sherry looked out the window and realized that we were in front of her parents' house. "No," she said almost with a groan. "Come out." Get out, or I'll throw you out, I warned, tapping the steering wheel impatiently. Disappointment gripped me, and I suddenly flushed. Get out, I shouted, refusing to look at her as I drove away. When I arrived home, my initial plan was to pour myself a strong drink and mindlessly watch TV until sleep overcame me. But then something clicked in me. I opened Sherry's closet, overcome with a lot of emotions and uncertainty, and I was fixated on her clothes. I started tearing off hangers with a barbell, desperately grabbing buttons, trying to tear the seams. Anger grew within me, and I headed to the kitchen, returning with the chef's knife. Fueled by passion, I forcefully cut her clothes, slicing through the fabric with the knife. Drink had taken over me, pushing me to act on impulse. I impulsively lit a fire in the fireplace and tossed our wedding album into the flames. In a fit of rage, I collected a handful of her underwear one by one and tossed them into the fire, captivated by the sight of each piece catching fire. Afterward, I settled into an armchair and watched a classic football match absent-mindedly until exhaustion finally overtook me and I fell asleep. Those hours were agonizing, filled with a sense of significance in every passing moment, yet none of them brought any comfort. I felt crushed, drawn toward the dark side of my emotions. I now understood the power of autosuggestion and the destructive tendencies of jealousy. I saw that beneath the surface of love, anger could run equally deep. The following morning brought a sense of calm. The house appeared tidy, except for the mess in the bedroom. The remnants of Sherry's torn clothes lay scattered on the floor around her closet. I left them there, along with the remains in the fireplace, the charred remains of our wedding album, the burnt bras, and the remnants of a nightgown. My mind felt empty, devoid of coherent thoughts. Driven by anger, I went to take a shower, letting the water cascade over me. In that moment, memories of our intimate moments from the previous night flashed through my mind. I realized that my life had undergone an irreversible change, yet strangely I didn't feel strongly about it. In light of recent events, I decided to have a direct conversation with Tom about our situation. I called him on his mobile phone, and to my surprise, he answered and immediately apologized. He admitted that it all began as harmless flirting that spiraled out of control. He assured me that there was nothing more to it, but he did confess to running into her at the mall once, and from there, things escalated. It was an impulsive mistake he deeply regretted. Listening to him, I sensed that he wanted to say more, so I patiently waited. It became clear that neither of them had intended for Peg and me to find out about their affair, but they couldn't resist their attraction, and it continued despite their guilt. In that same moment, a decision solidified within me. I knew exactly what to do in this situation. Tom, our friendship is over because of this. I don't care what happens between you and Peg. You're out of my life completely. You no longer exist in my world. Goodbye, Tom. With those final words, I abruptly ended the call while Tom was still speaking. In that moment, when Tom genuinely expressed his regret for hurting me, I felt the sincerity in his words. He had succumbed to his own weaknesses and chosen the wrong path. The betrayal ran deep, and it was clear that our friendship could not be salvaged. I was left to fend for myself because Tom had chosen to betray me. Without informing Sherry's parents, I headed to their house. When I knocked on the door, her father greeted me with a sad and anxious expression. "How are you holding up?" I asked, concerned as I stepped onto the porch. He partially closed the door behind him and let out a heavy sigh. "She told us," he admitted, his voice tinged with darkness. "You know she loves you, right? You should know that." He searched my eyes for some sign of understanding, shaking his head. "How foolish she is. It's unbelievable that I resort to such derogatory expressions when it comes to my own daughter. Foolish. I can't believe I'm saying these words about her, but it's foolish." The meaning was clear despite his scattered thoughts. He was fully aware of what he was saying. Sherry made a mistake, a significant one, but still just a mistake. With effort and time, we can get past it. Foolish. So foolish. The name-calling might persist, but we have to overcome it. "Can I come in?" I asked Sherry's father. My foolish daughter is in the kitchen. As I sat down at the kitchen table, I struggled to find the right words. Sherry looked pale, her eyes swollen from crying. Her mother stood silently beside her, and her father sipped water from a glass in small sips. Finally, I took a deep breath and outlined my decision. Here's what I've decided, I began, and Sherry nodded, her face reflecting the pain I had felt the day before. I'm going to file for divorce. There's no point in discussing the possibility of saving this marriage. The weight of her betrayal hung in the air. You betrayed me, our marriage, and everything I believed in you. I've made a firm decision. I don't want to be married to you anymore. The pain you've caused me is immeasurable, and I doubt you'll ever fully grasp the extent of what you've done. I know you love me, and it's because of that love that I'm choosing to divorce you. I want you to feel the pain of losing me and live with that burden. In a moment of emotional turmoil, she made a guttural sound. It's really unsettling how similar the sounds we make in moments of pain are to the sounds of pleasure. But let me clarify my further intentions. Are you listening, Sherry? I asked, seeking some form of acknowledgement. Sherry didn't respond verbally but lowered her head in silent agreement. As soon as the divorce is finalized, and that won't happen quickly, we can consider the possibility of rekindling our relationship. But there's one condition. You must prove that you're a good person, and then we can start dating again. I looked into Sherry's eyes, recognizing the sadness and pain etched on her face. I want you to understand that I once loved you, and now I'm giving you the opportunity to make me fall in love with you again. But know that I'm not going back. This marriage is now history. If you truly love me, you'll do your best to win me back. Sherry nodded, her lips tightly pressed together as she contemplated the weight of my words. During the divorce, Tom was no longer considered my friend, and I hardly spoke to Sherry. We sold our apartment, and Sherry moved back in with her parents while I searched for a new apartment. I ran into her father only a few times, and our conversations were casual and superficial. I didn't inquire about Sherry, but in these brief meetings, I made it clear that our agreement still stood. The divorce was officially finalized in just 4 months, a little less time than Sherry had spent in an affair with Tom. Peg reached out to me twice after the restaurant incident, but I told her about the divorce from Sherry and made it clear that I would only consider rebuilding our relationship if she distanced herself from both Tom and her own actions. To my surprise, Peg didn't attempt to contact me again. Instead, through mutual acquaintances, I learned that she and Tom sought counseling for their relationship. While I embarked on a vacation filled with adventure, engaging in activities like hiking and rock climbing in Chile, I thoroughly enjoyed it, as physical activity served as a therapeutic escape, clearing my mind completely. Upon my return, I found a message from Sherry on my work answering machine, inquiring about our conversation. As I rode in a taxi home from the airport, I decided to call her. I dialed her number and greeted her with a casual hello. The whole affair with infidelity and divorce had forced me to be more direct in my actions. I wondered whether she would call me. After informing her of my recent return to the city, I asked if we should continue the conversation. I proposed meeting and asked when she would be available. "What are you doing this afternoon? Would you like to grab a drink?" I suggested. When I arrived at the agreed-upon location, I saw her waiting in a booth, placing a glass of water in front of her. I took a seat and joined her. Our eyes met, and I nodded in greeting. I chose not to waste words, getting straight to the point. "Shall we discuss this further? Is there anything you want to say or suggest?" I asked, genuinely interested in her intentions. "I want to give this a chance," I added, emphasizing sure. Here's the continuation of the story. DNA test result. After sending this message, I received numerous calls from Sherry, but I didn't want to engage in conversation with her or see her again. I also made a serious decision to purchase a house far away from Sherry and Tom in an effort to leave the past behind once and for all. It's been 7 months since I blocked Sherry and all our mutual acquaintances. I bought a small house and try my best not to dwell on the past with Sherry. My work and involvement in sports helped me with this. I have a girlfriend with whom I spend weekends away from work, and we have a great time together, but I'm not looking for anything serious at the moment. Recently, I learned about Sherry's and her child's fate from my parents, and it brought me to tears as I couldn't overcome the pain. Following my message, Sherry became hysterical, which eventually led to a deep depression. She even refused to eat and spent entire days in bed. Due to this emotional breakdown, she gave birth to a premature baby girl who was diagnosed with Down syndrome. Now Sherry is raising the child on her own, living with her parents who assist her with everything.